Good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you David Teffet and Christy Zwollen, co-founders of Petal, the world's first zero-order germ-freezing waste bin. David is a serial entrepreneur, and as he added to me just before we got on this call, parallel entrepreneur is probably a better description, with successful venture creation experience for the last several years, and he will talk to you about that. Christy is a long-time friend and one of the nicest human beings like I've ever known. So it is great to have both of them on the call today. David and Christy, thank you for agreeing to talk to our students about your entrepreneurial journey. These students are part of the entrepreneurship, Foundations of Entrepreneurship class we teach. They are mostly juniors, and this is the first entrepreneurship course that they take. So in terms of academic exposure, they are really new to entrepreneurship. We want to get them excited about entrepreneurship, sure, but we also want to be realistic with them. We want to talk to them about the joys and the opportunities, but also the challenges and the pitfalls. With that, I will turn it over to you with request that you start by talking a little bit about yourself and your company.
Want to go first or me?
Yeah, I'll go first. It's so great to be able to talk to you guys. As Dr. Gupta said, we're longtime friends, and we met at Binghamton University, where I used to work in the Office of Civic Engagement. So my background is really in getting young people, college students, motivated, inspired to create change in their communities. So a lot of my background, all of my background thus far has been in a nonprofit setting doing civic engagement work. So for me, entrepreneurship is a very new thing.
As of last Tuesday, new for her.
Yeah, this is my first time launching a company, and I get to do it with my husband. And for some people, that might make it even more stressful. But I think for us, it really helps propel us forward. So yeah, I'll let David tell you a little bit about himself. He has a vast career in entrepreneurship and really all facets of business.
So I've actually been an entrepreneur since I was 8 years old, where most of the peers I had were watching TV. I was very poor growing up. I actually grew up in Alabama for part of my life, in Montgomery. And I was the son of a fighter pilot, so we traveled all over the world, and I was always trying to resettle myself. And I found work was an effective way to do that. But I learned early on that if I worked for myself in just the hour, that I never got enough money for what I thought I could deliver. So I started doing a little Tom Sawyer and getting some of my friends to do some work. And then every time I saw opportunities, I created little companies. And I did this to pay for my schooling for my undergrad, and in law school, I ran businesses. And then I took a 5-year hiatus of being a lawyer and realizing I hated lawyers, and I was never like a lawyer. And so I decided to quit that and go back into entrepreneurialism. And so I wish that it were for several years, but it's actually coming up on, I know actually it's 26.2 years, because I joked that I just completed my annual marathon of 26.2 miles, 26.2 years. And along the way, I have been at the head of close to 30 different companies. 14 of those were turnarounds internationally on behalf of Fortune 500 companies, private equity entities, and a very significant not-for-profit. And I've also raised close to $500 million so far. I ran a $100 million buyout fund. I've been a VC, an investment banker of my own firms. And I have run a number of companies, some of which I have sold, and a number of which were spectacular failures. I always found it kind of ironic that when I go in to do a turnaround and you have complete detachment, I have 100% success. But in my own ventures, it's not always that easy. And so I can talk to the crushing realities of knowing you've executed perfectly and the market falls out from underneath you, or you have a bad apple in the market, or you lose your slope and everyone else got ahead of you and you just know it's over. And I've had all those experiences just by quantity. And then one of the things that I really bring to all of it is a humility. So before some of y'all got on, I was asked if I could talk to y'all about what it's like to work for Fortune 500 companies. And my answer would be, I'm just me. So I've never adapted to it, which is why I've often been able to help turn around their divisions. So I know we are supposed to present to y'all certain aspects about our business, but I think the most that y'all will get out of this is if you really understand that we are prepared to tell you our good, our bad, and our ugly. And absolutely, positively, no question is off limits. You can ask us personal questions, professional questions. You can exclaim things, call bullshit if you think we said something you disagree with, and we will answer it. And neither one of us will flinch. So I really want y'all to know this is not your normal type of discussion where we're going to stand up and give you all the answers from here. We'll answer everything you have.
So David, I'll take this opportunity to remind students that they can ask questions via speaking up. They can also ask questions by typing it in the chat box. Whatever they feel comfortable with is perfectly fine. They can, I assume they can interrupt at any time by raising their hand. So all that is legit. Let me start by asking you something about the thing you said, which is humility. One of the messages young people get a lot from media is narcissism, arrogance.
Oh, God.
You both had successful careers. What do you think about the message that we get about narcissism, arrogance, false confidence from the media versus the focus you put on humility just a minute ago?
I'll take that first.
Yeah.
So if you were to look at my career path, what you'll notice is that I have never done the same business twice. Literally from 8 years old up. I have never done the same business twice. In fact, there's rarely even a tenuous connection between them. And the reason for that is I grew up in a military family, which was very much about narcissism and power. I had a fighter pilot as a dad, and they are jackasses. I don't know if y'all have seen The Great Santini, but it's a very difficult way to grow up, and it's a command and control approach, which is an archaic way of leading. And really it's a way of like locking you into someone else's insecurity where you cannot disobey or question. And to me, that just seemed like the antithesis of how you inspire people and teams and how you learn. So I made a commitment at a really young age, and I got to practice it as an adult repeatedly, where I always wanted to maintain childlike curiosity. I actually like being ignorant. I love being challenged. It's not a threat to me at all, because the way I look at it, it's like I have a very flexible mindset, an anti-fragility mindset. I want y'all to come at me. I want people to ask questions. I'd love to be stumped, because then I'm able to like think about something I've never thought of before. But because I'm humble, I never walk into something with a presumption of what I'm going to see. So that when I do like my turnaround work, by way of example, I'm generally the third or more person that they finally called in, because my approach is so unorthodox, and I'm known for it, which is I don't want to know the industry. I'm not interested in letting the numbers be the way I fix an organization. It's about the people and with the people. So if I come in without a greater than thou mentality, and instead look to find who are the rock stars and who are the toxic people, and I elevate the rock stars and I destroy the toxic people, literally fire them on the spot. Suddenly I have an organization that's so excited to like come together, and since I know nothing, I get to have them talk. And I'm always able to find that the answer was internal. Same thing with companies. My title in this one is CEO only because we're at a very high level of communication, but I'm known as Mr. Mom. And the reason I take that approach is that I'm here to facilitate and help people grow with them. And I'm not worried about my title. If I have to point to my rank or point to my title, I'm failing. And if I'm ever relying on my position, I really haven't delved into my company, its industry, its players, and my competitors. And I actually am friendly with all of those things.
Christy?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with David, and I think that it's, you know, like what he's describing, there's a concept by John Kabat-Zinn, it's called the beginner's mind. And he talks about how if you approach everything with a beginner's mindset, and you don't assume you're an expert about anything, that it takes away all the stress, and it takes away the ego and the sort of the toxicity that can creep into things when you think you're an expert at something. And I think, you know, we see this often, I think, at the university. When I worked in a university setting, you know, everybody at the university is an expert. And so it's like, it's hard sometimes to talk to each other because you get so ingrained into your way of thinking. It's your field and it's hyper specific. And then to be able to walk into a situation and and feel ignorant, I think is scary for people in that context. But if you have a beginner's mind always, and just accept that you don't know everything, because there's no way you can, it makes doing new things a lot easier.
I actually want to add to that, because what stops most people from being an entrepreneur is that they have the paralysis by analysis, and they believe that there's no way you can start your launch until you understand every single thing about this, and you have to know more and more and more and more, and then you reach this conviction that I know it, and that's where you fail because you're rigid. But if you come in and say, I'm not afraid to fail, I'm not afraid to fall, I'm not afraid to learn, you can start much earlier. Like right now, we're doing a consumer products company. I've never done one of those. I've never manufactured a product. I didn't worry about that. I found out early on that I can't raise money in this market for consumer products goods, even though I've raised close to $500 million. No one wanted to give us money to build a product to demonstrate that the market came. No problem, pivot. Let's go do a pre-sale. I didn't know there were such things as pre-sales. But because I'm never assuming I need to know everything, I never stress. And if I do stress, it lasts half a minute and it's really motivating as opposed to depressing.
So David and Christy, you just added two like really dope phrases to my lexicon, childlike curiosity and beginner's mind. And
Yes.
we'll come back to those towards the latter part of this talk. But I think this is a good time to share with students like how did the journey of this business start, and then walk them through the trials and the tribulations of this business. I think some of the students already looked up your business online, Petal Clean, because you shared the website, and I shared it with them. But if you can walk them through the journey that led you to this point.
How far back should we go? Should I start with Ottawa and explain the connections?
Just a brief, yeah.
I want to take y'all a little further back than you normally would go, because one of the things I've learned about life is it flows if you are always open to it. And if you don't look for something, you'll find it. So I have a 27-year-old son who found his first serious girlfriend, but I said, go sit in a coffee shop and she'll walk up to you. And that's exactly what happened, because it's when you're not looking, you just got to let the person come. So one of the turnarounds I did was in biometrics in Ottawa, Canada, 16 years ago. And I was staying at the Fairmont Hotel, which is the better hotel in Ottawa. And I would go to the bar at the end of each night, and there was a 16-year-old bar back who was a national magician and karate expert, who would bring me a bowl of nuts and my whiskey and would always pick my brain about the day because he was excited about business. And at the end of my time, I had turned around the company. I told him this Friday is my last day. He said, can I please conduct an interview of you? And I took the time to say, of course, I'd be happy to help you. And he brought 100 questions. I took him to a coffee shop and I talked for 3-4 hours with this kid. Last April, 2019, he calls me and he goes, hey, David, this is Michael. Do you remember me? Like, yeah, you're the kid from the Fairmont Hotel, the bar back guy. And he goes, well, I did everything you told me to do based on my interview. I'm really successful and I have an investment bank. And as part of that, I have lots of companies and I'm in Toronto. I would love for you to come and meet me one day and talk to you about it. Long way of saying you really never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. I didn't have this in my head. I didn't know where, I never thought of this concept. But when we met, he described a problem that he had with his portfolio company, Petal, and why they couldn't get off the ground. And everything he was telling me, they were doing wrong as far as how they were approaching it. So I just advised him. I said, if I were in your shoes, these are the things I would do to take the business into a different direction. And from there, he introduced us to the inventors who really liked us, and we just set up a whole entity around what was really a working prototype with no market plan. And their objective was to go head to head with the Diaper Genie, and that would be their primary market. And my answer to them is you never go head to head with the largest competitor. If you're going to have the gall to go after the largest competitor, crush them. But if you're going to go crush them, crush everybody else too. So I said, let's not just go after diapers. Let's supplant diapers, organic food. Let's own composting. Let's take care of feminine hygiene. Let's talk about adult briefs and medical waste. And this is before COVID, but I saw all of those in the same category of what are the things that are organic, that rot, stink, and fester and spread germs. And every one of those categories, for over 150 years, we keep in our environments in open containers just to rot, stink, and spread germs. I'm like, anything where that happens, we should own it. In our homes, in our enterprises, and in our government, in the military, no matter where it is, we should supplant all of it. And as soon as you can think at that level, you can inspire people to start. And that really triggered a lot of equity investment in us, partnerships in us. And if y'all saw our sites, we've had some significant announcements.
So somebody came up with this idea. You helped them think through the applications of the idea in terms of how far-reaching it can be. But the way you just explained, it seemed like a smooth sail all the way through, right?
No, of course not.
Okay.
If I did that, then I haven't shown proper humility. Of course it wasn't easy. No. Well, first of all, I have to say that they didn't have an idea. They had actually quit their jobs like 5-6 years before they met us and had worked full time to develop prototypes, never able to reach it. And they didn't understand their limitation. It's two aerospace engineers, rocket scientists. These are not dumb people. They're really smart. And what they finally realized is they couldn't get to the form factor they wanted because the materials didn't exist in the world yet. So two things happened immediately prior and immediately after we met. One was vacuum insulated panels became an easier, cost-effective solution, which allowed them to insulate the edges of this product so significantly that we could get to sub-zero temperatures. And R600 is a refrigerant that's used in compressors. I didn't know any of this, by the way, I'm telling you it now, but that suddenly changed the efficiency of the operation and made it environmentally sustainable, which mattered to all of us. And so it was time had to catch up with their brilliant idea. Other people had thought of this before, but no one had executed on it. So sitting here today, we have a fully functioning prototypes. We're in our 8th version, and we have an international contract to manufacture it through Danby. But along the way, looking at you, COVID, we had a lot of issues. We had a very difficult time raising money. We had to move from Ohio to Fort Worth to set up our headquarters while we're under shelter-in-place orders all the way along the way. We're building a company virtually with people in Canada, Seattle, California, DC, Delaware, and New Orleans, and here. I mean, it's like everything you could possibly imagine that would make it difficult happened. But for me, this is the 3rd time I've done a business amidst chaos. I did it after 9/11 when everyone pulled out. I started buying up data centers, and which I ultimately sold for a nice profit. And after 2008, I launched a company called Red Swan on Rachel Ray at a time when everyone was pulling back. And it was about gold parties for women, a business created by women, for women, through women. It was a huge success at exactly the time everyone told me, don't do it. And we're doing it again. This will be our 3rd time.
So that brings me to the next question, which is, let's say you're 22, 25, like our students are, right? They have an idea and they tell that idea to their parents or to their professor or to their fellow students. And let's say some of them say this idea is not good, move on. Some people will say this idea is good, stick to it. How do you decide like how good the idea is? How do you make that decision in, for example, this idea, right, Christy? I mean, when somebody tells you a tech-enabled trash can, right? I mean, it's not an easy idea to wrap your heads around because it's an expensive proposition. How do you know whether you should go ahead or jettison the idea?
I actually think that if you become your decision maker, you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. Big mistake. You're not the market. If you allow anecdotal observations to make your decisions, then you're not ready for entrepreneurism at all, because you're a candle in the wind. You're just going with whatever you heard. What you look for is grounded external affirmation. And in our world, from my perspective, there's two ways to get that. One is other people's money, and the other is other people's time. So in most of my ventures, as I said, raising that much money, I generally can go out to the world, I package up what it is. I don't sell, I facilitate buys. So I'm not a pushy guy, I do the opposite. I'm like, I don't know anything about this industry. I am just a caveman, but I know this little bit. And in this little bit, here's what I think is happening. Here's my picture of the market. Do you look at that and see the same thing? And if so, would you invest? That's it. Tons of risk, because I don't know anything. And I generally find that when people say, oh my God, yeah, I'm going to invest in that. Well, now you got external affirmation, especially if the money's smart. I'm not talking about your friends. I'm talking about going to someone that's either in the industry or someone who's in private equity or venture capital who knows exactly what the market is. And you don't just throw it like spaghetti on the wall. You have to do your research to know who's the right one that would actually understand this. And if they say no, it's a no. But if they say yes, you hit it, right? That's good. And so I validate all of my businesses on that route. This one I couldn't do that with, though, because as I said, people wouldn't invest money in a consumer product because you have to raise 3 to 5 million just to build it before you can take it to the market to test it. This isn't software. You know, this isn't something I can just test out there with a little bit of a Google search and people go, oh yeah, I would love that app. And now I have my affirmation. So what I did is as soon as I knew that I couldn't package it, and I say I always mean we, so I don't mean that in a royal way, I'm just describing it this way. But what we did is instead of worrying about the money, I determined that the only way we were going to get what we needed was to pre-sell it. And so I never heard the concept, but came across it. Kickstarter, Indiegogo would be a pre-sale campaign. But I don't ever believe in launching a product. You always launch a brand. So what I wanted to do is find a partner that would be willing to do it on a branded website that would be our voice. So when I researched, I came across Rain Factory. And rainfactory.com, if you were to look them up, is one of the most successful crowdfunding pre-sale agencies in our country. And they've had more and the highest grossing pre-sales ever of all of them. And so I put together a very tight presentation. My belief is if you can't explain it in one page, then you haven't worked hard enough. And there's some quote that said, if I had more time, it would be shorter. But I put together a one-pager that I put in front of them by email, got a response back in 30 minutes. Yeah, we're very interested in this. And I had a little bit of my bio and a link and everything. And at the end of the conversation that we had, which wasn't a very long one, they said, we're going to do something we haven't done in our entire 6-year history, because they're very selective of who they pick, and they only pick a few of all the applications they get. They said, we want to take our entire fee and invest $100,000 in cash. So it's a $524,250 equity investment, all of it in equity. And in their entire 6 years, they had never taken a penny of equity. And so I had the external affirmation that I look for, because this is someone who's in the space. And they knew that the only way they were going to win is if they could pre-sell this at a level behind an enterprise that would make their equity worthwhile. That everyone following that?
Any questions, anyone? So
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead, please.
So what would you guys say to like a bunch of 20 to 21-year-olds that if the person hypothetically just joined like a business management major because they didn't have any desire to do anything else at college, like bio or math or whatever, but you're kind of just, going through life and you have no idea what you actually want to do whatsoever. But you wanted a degree because you have to get that in this world to like do something. So like, what would you say to like move forward, in life?
I love how Sierra put this question, right? Hypothetically, if all this was true, what advice would you give someone? I love you, Sierra. Good job.
It's hilarious.
That's great humility. I admire it. I'd already offer you a position. Let's get you started on trying something.
I think you have to take some time to develop your passions in life, you know? And that's not something that, sometimes it's something that strikes you naturally, like you might just be born with a real passion for art or a real passion for dance or whatever it may be. But a lot of times it takes like some experimentation and some really like intentional conversation with yourself to discover what really kind of makes you tick. And it may not be something, it's definitely not something that you're gonna figure out in like 5 seconds or even 5 years. And I'm still figuring it out, right? You know, I'm 36 and I'm launching a company. I never thought I would be launching a company. As Dr. Gupta said, I was always doing like community activism. And I thought that, you know, that corporations were evil, you know, and so why would I ever, you know, build a company? You know, I'm for the little guy. But here I am, you know, doing this new thing. And I never could have imagined it. And for me, the reason why I wanted to pursue this business is because it aligns with my passion for social justice. So it may not seem like it, you know, it's a trash can company, but we have a real mission and a vision that everyone deserves to live in a healthy and clean environment. And so we're bringing this technology to the world, not just so that we can make money as a company, but because we truly believe that this product can solve a lot of public health issues around the world. So that passion is something that has always motivated me, is, you know, what can I figure out to do that's going to make some impact on the world. And it's been in like different contexts. You know, I've done that in higher education, and I've done that in the nonprofit world, and now I'm doing it in the for-profit sector through a business. And the thread that carries through all of that is really a passion for sustainability and social justice.
My answer is a little bit different. Mine would be that whatever degree you have is a piece of paper that goes into a drawer, and if it becomes your entire path of who you are, then you've never grown past the age you got it. And that when you're in school, the advice I give to everyone is don't worry about anything you learn. There's nothing you're going to learn that you're going to come into any company and go, oh my God, you know that fact, because we're in the age of the internet. What everyone really wants to know is that you developed a passion for learning, and you have a method of being curious, and then you have the tenacity to go find it, and then you have the analytical ability to explain it. And along the way, once you have that, if you are good in EQ or IQ, and I'm going to put those two, one is that you enjoy working with people and you get your energies that way, or the other is you love the execution and you're more analytical. Just find your groove in that, but don't become subject matter, you know, fixated. Be agnostic. Allow yourself to grow. Only if you don't know. Some people know exactly what they love. You know, what I describe for me is not for everybody. It's very unsettling for most people, by the way. But if you happen to know you love a field, then you just got to decide, how do I continue to grow in that field? And the way I say to do it is to find the energies that make you feel like you're rising, as opposed to just going through the exercises to graduate or to get a job or to have a job or to get paid. Because your life will be really boring and painful.
I
That
think
helps.
this
Thank you.
question also takes us kind of way back. So David, you said you started your first business, I think you said when you were 8.
Yes.
And Christy, you said you've always been interested in like social justice and equality. And so when, like, how did you know that, you know, for David, that, you know, starting businesses is what you're interested in, and for Christy, that it's social justice that drives you? Like, how did you get to that?
Mine actually comes, there's a saying that behind every entrepreneur, there is a dead parent and a paper route. And I fit that bill. So I had a father who was killed in Vietnam when I was young. I had a mother who became very unhinged, had a house that was not a fun one to stay in, and I was very poor. And so I could either fall into a cycle of depression and violence, or I could grow as my own person. And I was fortunate that as a young kid, I actually had the maturity to say, I'm staying away from that house. I'm not going to ask for anything. And I'm going to start figuring out how to take care of myself. So my story, y'all can look it up. There's an Authority magazine interview I recently did about resilience. And it's a long read, but you'll find out how much I really mean. There's nothing off limits because I put it out there. So my story may sound like a dark story, but actually it's a really optimistic story because it was out of very difficult circumstances that I made different decisions. And instead of having a woe is me mentality, it was I can grow past my circumstances and I'm not obligated to join the sorority/fraternity of violence. I can be a kind, good person and execute with excellence without being a jackass, a narcissist, or a bully, you know, and so it was a very personal decision, not an easy decision because your natural tendencies psychologically are very different, but one I'm really proud that I was able to do. And business for me was a natural path. I also chose photography at the same age. So if you ever see me anywhere, I always have a camera. So look behind us, you can see all these cameras. And I always have, including my first cameras right there, I always have a camera and I'm always running some business. And I find great pleasure in both.
Christy?
And for me, it also has a, you know, dark sounding origin, but but very positive in the same way. So when I was in high school, I was suicidally depressed. I tried to kill myself twice. And the second time when I attempted this, I came this close. And when I woke up, and I started to recover from my depression, which took a lot of hard work. I started to really feel grateful to be alive. It gave me this completely new perspective on life. And I felt like now that I'm here and I actually want to be here, what am I going to do to make a difference in other people's lives? And that's what got me interested in social justice and, you know, all different types of public issues. I wanted to figure out, you know, what could I do during this time that I now have that I see as a gift? What can I do in this time that's going to make a difference for people? So that is, for me, how I got interested in social justice. And then I would say also through literature. When I was depressed, I did a lot of reading and a lot of writing. I would, you know, read, like one of my favorite books is Frederick Douglass's autobiography. It's called Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. And it helped me to feel connected to other people when I was in a really dark place. And it also motivated me, and it told me that I could push past, you know, I would be able to overcome. Look what Frederick Douglass did. Wow. You know, you can manage to, you know, get your shit together and get up and seize the day or whatever. And so I think it was those two things that kind of, that got me really motivated.
Perfect.
I know there's a question in the chat.
Yeah, I know we have a question in the chat, but I wanted to bring us back to the current business, and then we can answer the chat question. And my question is, so David talked about how he went to Canada, heard this idea, got excited, and then he shares the idea with you. And one of the things I found is it's not always easy to convince your family members that the idea you are excited about, they should be excited about too, right? So was it like love at first sight with the idea, or was it like it took some convincing?
That's for you to answer.
You know, I think it took a little bit of convincing because David has extreme energy, and it allows him to pursue multiple paths at once. So, you know, we, in the course of our relationship, have, David, in the course of our relationship, has started a lot of things. And he works so hard until it just seems like, you know what, it's not going to work, and he'll move on to something else. And so, you know, this happens if you're going to be an entrepreneur. this happens. So I think I was maybe just protecting myself emotionally a little bit, because I didn't want to become too invested in case it didn't go forward. But I think eventually I started to see through the external affirmation that David discussed earlier, like, okay, this seems real. Like, this could really be something. And it felt more real, and it felt more right than the other things that David had pursued in the past. And it just started to feel different. And once it kind of clicked, then I was like all in.
You know, and what I want to add to that, that's implicit in what she said, is a lot of people in a relationship would be afraid to pursue something and have their spouse or their parents or their siblings or friends see them reach what the naysayer will always say. And she's not a naysayer, but I've been surrounded by naysayers my entire life. And if they keep saying no, they're going to be right more often than not. But if you get to the one yes where they said no again, and you happen to have it successful, now you're on the back end of millions of dollars. And I bet you feel silly now, but no, but I was right the other times. And so I try to eliminate the noise, and I don't mind. And I even say, I'm pursuing this. I see enough in it that makes me feel it's worth it. I will take on my little breadcrumbs of affirmation while I follow a path to see if I can get the other people's money or the partnership affirmation. And when it's over, it's like you're a little like emotionally spent because you spent time, but I'm doing multiple at the same time. So it's not like I'm just doing one. And I just go, next, and then I'll go to the next one. And literally it's over. As soon as I say the word next, it's over. And she can tell you that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm. So David, the way you just said it made it seem like you're really good at getting past like setbacks. Mm-hmm. And I know earlier you talked about resilience, right? So it seems like you're really good at that. What advice would you have in terms of resilience for, like Kara said, for 21, 22, 23-year-old students who are just starting on their career path in life?
Well, if you're not in discomfort, you're not growing. I ask everyone to embrace your discomfort. Think about it, if you're lifting weights and you go in, you throw up a few 10-pounders, you get a little bit of a flex, and you're just like, I look good, I'm gonna go, right? Nothing, you did absolutely nothing. If you push to the point where you actually broke your muscles down a bit, where they actually suffered real pain, where you know you're gonna owe yourself some protein and you're gonna have to have a day off. Well, now you did something, right? You experience pain. So the way I approach the concept of resilience is I am very present. I'm present and intentional in just about everything I do. And I've been this way for most of my life. I've had crushing moments where I'm like careening down from 50,000 feet, not literally, but it might as well have been. And I'm watching that ground and I know I'm gonna go right through the ground. I am gonna just break the gravel. I'm gonna meet the internal lava of the earth. And the whole time it's happening, where I know I'm now no longer in control, I simply said, this is really interesting. I've never been here before. I'm going to pay a lot of attention to this because I never want to repeat this again. But if I survive this, I'm going to be a hell of a person after this is done. And I really do say it a lot with that laughter, even as it's happening. I too have had bouts of depression that were very painful. And that article will talk about one of them in particular. But it's not a steady state for me. So what I actually advise people that if you want to be an entrepreneur, then you really need to become friends with your discomfort. You must accept that going through pain is part of it, and that surviving it is the measure of you is not that you failed, it's how you recovered from the failure. And tenacity is key. If you are a low energy person, unless you somehow have the ability to motivate other people around you to do everything you should be doing, I would suggest that it would not be the right path for you. I mean, it requires insane tenacity and not accepting like the artificial failures. Sometimes it really is, you got to know the difference. But if you hit a point, you got to be willing to say, all right, I'm gonna go through it, I'm gonna go over it, I'm gonna go under it, I'm gonna go around it. I'm gonna fake them out and act like I'm doing something over here till they move, now I'm gonna go. And it's just constantly moving aggressively towards your goals. So resilience is just a pain point that every time it happens, I was like, oh, I grew a little bit. Now with all that said, y'all probably can't tell from Zoom, She's 5'9", I'm 5'5", my dad was 6'3". Had I not chosen this path, I would be 6'3", I'm positive. So I did not grow in that way. I grew more in my mentality.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I mean, I think that I probably have always been more resilient than I gave myself credit for, but through, you know, being with David, I've been able to develop my resilience further because I had an example. He sets a really good example all the time because the tenacity that he talked about is real. And he has a really high pain threshold. So like I can think of times, you know, in my previous career where something wasn't going quite right. And I kept trying, and I was like, you know what, it's not gonna work. So I would just stop and be like, all right, it's not worth it. You know, I tried my best, I couldn't do it. I have never seen David do that ever. And he was the first person who I saw that never quit. If he wanted to achieve something, no matter how many times somebody told him no, he would like try another way. Well, what if we talk to this person, or we can, you know, repackage it, or we'll do this, and I would be like, no, just stop, like it's enough. I don't want to hear you anymore. But in the end, it would always work out that he was able to find a way because he just kept like, you know, spinning it around and looking at it from different angles. And I think whereas most people would probably just quit, he just keeps on turning things around and figuring out a way. So I think it's something that is a, you know, innate skill of his, but, you know, I've learned to develop my resilience by watching him be effective.
It also goes to like the childlike curiosity, because since I know nothing, someone tells me it's impossible, I don't buy it. I'll tell you my most embarrassing, and actually I think the signature story of me was in 9th grade. I had a geometry teacher who declared as just a rule of geometry that all triangles are 180 degrees. Bullshit. I don't buy that. No, it's not 180 degrees. And I spent days on end trying to construct a triangle that somehow would not be 180 degrees. I can tell you every triangle is 180 degrees. But he wrote a review about me because he said, I've never seen someone come at it, you know, using logic and creativity and visuals. And like, I really tried to destroy that belief that a triangle is 180 degrees. Not going to happen. But it was because I had no idea. I was totally ignorant. And it helped me learn geometry better than most because I tested every part of that concept.
So David, this is a good time to segue to the chat questions. We have 2 questions so far. Do you want to take one at a time?
Yes. And actually, I think the nice way to think about it is to go to the first one, which is when there's 2 parts of business for me. We've spent a lot of time talking about how do you find it? How do you know if it's right? How do you go to build it? What does it take to do that with resilience and tenacity? Well, here's the part that to me is a state of complacency that I hate. When this business gets to steady state, you'll never see someone more bored than me. I mean, it can be a steady state on a straight incline, and most people, oh my God, profit, profit, profit. And I'm bored out of my mind because there's no more challenge. Like, it's just like, whatever. So the reason I work in parallel is because I don't like that state. I don't feel active. There's not much you can do to it. There is a natural position where if you're in a glide path where it's just like, it's perfect and there's nothing to be done. And everything is just babysitting. And if someone came along and said they wanted to buy it from me and they're going to pay a multiple where I look at the annuity of cash versus like a 6x, 10x, 20x, and a capital gains tax versus an income tax, yes, take it, please, please, please. I'm delighted. I don't care what you do to it. Take it. It's gone. And I say that because I always bring the same teams with me, so I don't lose the people. I'm just tired of the boring business. But if let me see what's that. A new prospect. So if a new prospect comes in front of me that's promising, it in no way affects the business I'm doing. Literally today, if one of y'all said something, that's like, oh, that's awesome. I'd like to explore that with you. You would never know from Petal that I was doing that with you. You would never know at Petal that we run 2 other companies that we're not talking about today. You would never know at Petal that I'm doing a law case. You just wouldn't know because I don't sleep. I don't care. Nothing's going to get in any way deviated or compromised by what those next opportunities are. So, but that's particular to me because, as she said, I really don't sleep much. It's a ridiculous level of energy. I do always know when I build a business who my buyers are. So for Petal, by way of example, Playtex is a really good buyer for this because they own Diaper Genie. They're going to want to protect the market. So for cannibalistic reasons, they should want to buy us. They also have feminine hygiene products, and it gives them an opportunity to get into new markets. It's a natural extension for them to get into nursing homes and adult briefs and medical waste, which everyone's going to go to in a COVID era. So I know they're a very good one. P&G is another one. And I know that, and I'm already seeding it. And I always think that far ahead. You should know when you start what do your exits look like, assuming you don't fail. That's always an option too. Something more challenging. And again, I'm not a squirrel though. I'm not like squirrel, squirrel. It's not the next shiny thing that excites me. It's the next third-party affirmation thing that will excite us, to take a look at. In this one, the answer is no. I'll never settle down in Petal. I don't think that you would settle down anymore, but I'm not sure about that. Would you just settle down with Petal this last one?
Cleaner, settle down, just focus on that. No, I don't think we would. I think there's like, there's just so much out there. And I can't see David settling down for sure. It's possible for me, but I think that one thing that's Petal's done for me is really opened up my creativity. And so I'm starting to be able to develop new skills and exercise my creative muscles in ways that I never have before. And that's really exciting to me. So I can't see at this point just settling down. I think that I see a lot of growth potential for myself through Petal and future projects. And so I want to continue to explore that and see, how much I can unleash for my own creative potential.
Now, before we come to other questions from the students, one of the things I wanted to discuss with you is marketing. So it's one thing to make a product, and you talked about it, right? That these couple of technologies had to come together to get the product to be in the shape where you could sell it the way they had envisioned it. But what about the marketing side? Pre-orders, I'm assuming, are not easy to get. It's not like you call up people and they say, yeah, $1 million, we'll buy. You can. So how did you market the product?
There's several components to it, and pre-sales essentially is you're tailoring ads that are going to go on Facebook, Instagram, Google, and YouTube, and you're trying to get people to express an interest in what you're doing. So it is sort of a sales, but it's more of like a bait to get someone to give you their email or to make a purchase. And there's all types of statistics and data around how to position yourself best, and you A/B test everything. So every single thing that you see in our sites or our ads have been tested to the nth degree, and we're always optimizing. But that's just a pre-sale component. I've stressed several times, I'm not one of those people who passively will wait for something. So what we've also done is that we've identified very significant partners who should want to put our product into their channels. And we struck a relationship, which I'll talk about now, which is Danby. In this instance, we can only get something out into the world if we can manufacture it. So when you manufacture, you can get a contract manufacturer, you could become a manufacturer, or you could become a division of someone that is a manufacturing company. And what I went for, and this is really, I'm gonna say I in this instance, because this is something I architected intentionally, was a hybrid between having a contract manufacturer and being a subsidiary of someone else's manufacturing arm. And we struck a relationship with Danby, and I'll get to why it's about sales in a second, but it's really critical to understand why this mattered to get us to this. If I only struck this relationship with Danby out of Canada, which is North America's largest manufacturer and distributor of small refrigerators, freezers, wine coolers. Had we only done that, we would have achieved what we did, which is that we now look like we manufactured 2 million units a year. We have their economy of scales, we have their buying power, and we can manufacture in Canada, Asia, America and Mexico, and we have warehouses all over the United States and Canada, as if we were them. And that alone would have been a huge win, and it is a huge win. But the reason we picked Danby is twofold. Danby happens to be the largest seller of these types of appliances into all of the big boxes. Costco, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart,
Bed Bath & Beyond.
Best Buy.
Best Buy, yeah.
So just before we got on, I don't know, not all the students were there. Jim Estel, who is the owner of Danby, and he and I have become very good friends, and he is now an advisor and a shareholder in our companies, our growth officer, growth coach, wrote us to say that Home Depot wants to buy this, which we knew up front that if we got Danby, that Jim Estel would start selling. And the way I did it is I put it into the contract that you would get most favored nations, and then you could do a resale above it for your margin so that he's incented to sell. And so that's another path that we've taken. We've also identified significant procurement companies that want to put this into the government, into the military, and into 4,000 hospital systems and 200,000 clinics. And then you may want to talk to them about our couple that we're announcing today and about influencers.
Oh yeah, and then we're also working with influencers on Instagram. So we haven't unveiled it yet, so I can't say who they are exactly. But they're a couple from a popular reality TV show who has just recently announced that they're having a baby.
On people.com, just to give you a sense of the magnitude of it.
And we have created a sort of scandalous narrative around them that we're going to use to introduce the idea of a partnership between Petal and this couple. So we have a whole narrative worked out, and we provide creative content for them to use on their Instagram. And they're going to have a unique code that, you know, if their followers use, they'll have a discount. So and we've got some other influencers lined up too. So,
but I want to interject.
Yeah.
And they get $10 per. So instead of paying based on someone's promise of what their potential is, I took a Missouri show me state approach, which is pay for performance. Y'all do everything that we'd like you to do the way we'd like you to do it, and we'll tailor everything to your brand. So when it comes out, you'll actually look at it and say, you wouldn't know that Petal did it. It will look like they did it for themselves, but we only pay if they actually perform. I'm not a big believer in just put the money out based on my best guess that maybe it will work. You know, this is one where there's a demonstrable way of knowing. Here's a code, someone buys, they get $10, you get $10. Mm-hmm. And we now have signed up, we're signing up 3 different ones on very significant ones based on that approach.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
David,
that's oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Christy. Sorry, I didn't mean.
I was just going to say that this is a broader approach. We have a referral program. So anybody who purchases, well, you don't even have to purchase.
Yeah, you don't even have to.
If you sign up for our referral program, you get a unique code or a unique link that you can share with people. And if they use that code or link to purchase a Petal, you get $10 cash.
And they get $10 off.
And they get $10 off. So, and you don't have to purchase a Petal in order to make money doing this. So this is really, like David said, I mean, this is our way of, instead of throwing money potentially at more online ads, we're paying you guys to tell your friends and make money in the process. And
it's really simple math, because the way we're optimizing, we actually know that our cost per acquisition, you know, the cost per acquisition is around $33, $35. Worst case is closer to 50. Best case, it's going to be about 25. If we can do the referral, and whether it's in an influencer model or any other type of model like that, it's 20. It's our lowest cost of acquisition. So it's one that we concentrate on for the pre-sale. But again, I'm never one to believe that you just laser follow one path. So we have multiple paths of growth.
So the way you described this, again, maybe it's the optimistic you, but you made it seem like so simple, right? That you reach out to the largest contract manufacturer in North America, and they go, oh yeah, we've always been waiting for you, so here's business, right? I'm assuming it didn't happen like that.
Yeah, well, actually it did. And this is the part that I hope y'all really appreciate, that I am truly humble. But this is the part of life that I know, which I'm going to convey to y'all. I don't sell. I do not sell someone on why they want to be with Petal. I do not explain why DMB thinks we're the greatest product on earth. What I do is I facilitate a buy by knowing them so well before I walk into that door or reach out by email or make a call that I'm like a fly fisher. I know exactly what fish I'm after. I know exactly where they're sitting. I know what type of lure they like. I know what time of day they like. I know how it's going to fall or float and why it matters. So when I approached Danby, I said, let me explain what I see from the outside about where you are. If I'm right, I would think you would benefit from the following. If I'm right, I think you might find this structure attractive. And if I'm right, let me show you that Petal could fit into that and solve all these things for you. Now, normally I would do that by asking lots of questions if I happen to know the person. But the reason I've been able to raise so much money and make such partnerships isn't because I have a Rolodex. I actually don't have an extended group of business friends. It's because I research and I study and I really figure out who's in this space and what would be the advantages and what are the assets that they have that I could leverage. And most importantly, what are the pain points they have? And I can see from their press releases they're struggling with or looking for. And I read their interviews and I read like volumes, not like little snippets and pick up the phone. I study them to the nth degree, and then I very naturally have a conversation. So Jim Estel, when I called him, I said, I'm taking a walk. Would you like to take a walk with me? He's in Canada. And so we could just chat and get to know each other. And he goes, actually, yes. And he puts on his jacket. And for a week, we talked to each other while we worked through the parameters of what our partnership could look like. And it was a very natural process. And most of my interactions look like that, where I facilitate the buy by knowing the other side and never wasting their time. And as soon as I find that there was an assumption that's wrong or there's not a fit, utterly indifferent. Sorry to have wasted your time. I thought there might have been a better fit. So my hit rate's really high. It's not a small number. I don't watch sports, but I know from baseball that my hitting rate would be pretty significant.
So Zach has a question about the supply side, and I want to come to the influencer side after we answer this question.
Okay. So Zach, I understand the words you're using, but I'm not positive that I'm following what you're after. Do you mind talking, or you want to write a little bit more?
No, I mean, it's fine. I was just kind of meaning, kind of like when you were trying to get Danby for a supplier for whatnot, and like, I don't know if that was your end all be all, like they were the ones that you knew they wanted to be your supplier, like you just talked about. Like, what kind of hoops did you have to jump through to kind of get that ball rolling?
So, well, there's two parts to it. I knew about Danby before we started. So in this one, it was a little bit of easier for me to get to them. And the way I knew about them originally is that the inventors had a relationship with them that was a very bad contract. I mean, a really bad contract. And so he knew who I was. He actually liked me. We had met, but he had reason to dislike me because I had the former inventors rescind the contract with prejudice. And that means that I'm being very clear that that's a heinous contract and I can't do business with someone who would do that contract. But we didn't burn a bridge. It just wasn't the result he was hoping for. So then as we were building, and I'm back to the point where I do need to consider the supply side, how am I going to get this to market? I started talking to a bunch of manufacturing facilities. And I generally do this, it's like they're my straw men. I'm doing it on purpose, where I'm picking ones that I don't think are the right ones, but they're the perfect ones to learn from. Again, I'm ignorant. I don't know. What's the best way to find out something? It's to let someone think they're getting the better of you while you're paying attention to them, knowing you're not going to work with them. So I did a number of those where I would approach someone either as like a secret shopper or as, outright, like I am interested, and let them put me through their paces until I understand every single thing that they're doing, and ask lots of questions. I put on my doe eyes, like, oh, really? Like, that doesn't seem fair. Why would you want to do that? And I listen really carefully to why are they doing it, and just really ask lots of questions, and I never take offense. But at the end of that process, I was now ready to approach Danby again, because now I knew. So when I came back to him and explained, here's where you are and here's where we are. We're not those two inventors with hat in hand. we're a major enterprise that's going to go out, and you either are going to have something like this or you're not so pointed, but really sweet in the way I said it. And he said, well, why don't we just start with that contract? I said, actually, I'd be delighted to negotiate from that contract, but you need to understand that that means you get to see everything that you had, because you're not going to end up on any of those terms. So it was the hardest negotiation I've had to do, because every time we've done it, every time we reached a new term, he could see he was earning like 50% and I have him at 5% now. But it was more because at that point I had learned so much that he knew he couldn't just take unprincipled positions. And I kept everything locked through principles, not positions and not numbers.
David, it's interesting that what you said is consistent with the advice I got from my father when I first started in the family business, which is if you have knowledgeable suppliers, you learn from them like a child. You
Yes.
don't try to impress on them that you know a lot. You tell them how much they know and then try to learn from them. So
Yes.
that's what I heard kind of you say the same thing.
Yeah, and actually, for some people, that's a humiliating experience, because there's arrogance on the other side, and you have to play false humble. And I've been in situations where people want to talk about environmental law, which I was an environmental litigator, I was the head of my environmental law journal. And I'm just, well, go ahead, I'd love to hear. Because if they want to be arrogant, I'll just listen and listen and listen. And sometimes I'll learn something I don't know, and then they'll get to the end and I'll just say, by the way, you may have considered so-and-so. And they'll just be like, what? That's just something I'd consider if I were in your shoes.
Now, I want to move the conversation to the other side. You talked about influencers, and I truly don't know which one you talked about, but I'm going to look up because you said you can't name them. But what you described your arrangement with them seems like all commission based, right? If the sale happens, we will give you X.
Yes.
But if they are a big deal, like you said, they are, announcing the child in people, on people.com, they're probably used to people paying them money up front.
Yeah.
So how do you
There's always
get
the expectation.
influencers who are used to getting money up front to agree to all commission?
The people, you sort of put it on them as a moral philosophy, that if you wanted to name a price, I could walk away or I could stay. If you believe in your value and you believe in what you're doing, you should know your richest path is to accept one where you're going to perform and get paid for it. Now tell me who you are as a person. Now, I didn't judge them, but it's kind of clear what I'm saying. And these are really good people, by the way, but there'll be people who will walk away. You're not going to get this naturally. And you can calculate, like if you got like Kim Kardashian, and for whatever reason, she agreed to take $100,000. Yeah, I'd pay her $100,000, but she's not going to agree to $100,000. She's going to demand $1 million plus, right? And as a small business, I don't have $1 million to give someone. But if you can get someone who really pauses for a moment and sees this not as a transaction, but as a relationship, and that's very much both of our approach. And Christy was like a really critical part of this. And they're a husband-wife team, and they liked us as a husband and wife. They moved off of what the industry expectation was because we gave them an alternative that made them feel not just good about themselves, but good about us. And if it didn't work, whatever, we'd move on. And I'm going to share something that seems like a non sequitur, but I think it will make the point that I'm trying to state is I can draft a contract that will absolutely be bulletproof. I can do that. I've been doing my own contracts ever since even before I was a lawyer, but definitely since. And what I do with the contract is I know that at the end, I'm never going to look at that contract. Even though I was a litigator, I sued one time in my whole life. Been sued a couple of times myself. But what I'm really doing, like what I did with Jim Estill, is I'm evaluating how are we reaching our deal points? Were we principled? Were we connecting? Did we actually want to work with each other, or are we trying to get the most that we can from each other? Because if you're dealing with a good person and you have a dispute, you'll never have to look at the contract. You'll work it out. If you're dealing with a bad person, it won't matter what the contract will say. The first claim they'll make is fraud, which gets you off the contract. So I look at the contract in the same way I look at this, like this discussion we had with the couple or my time with Jim, as who are we dealing with? And it's the most critical question you can ask, because everything in life happens with and through people, not by contract.
That's good advice, David. Now, one of our most participative students in class is Danny, and he's been very quiet today. He hasn't asked anything yet.
It's
So
funny,
I am
Danny.
going to ask Danny
Danny
if
is the
he has.
person I'm actually using as my audience measure. He is the one that I always pick the one person. I'm like, your face. I'm using you. You can't tell, but you're like 2 down.
Yeah. Okay.
I watch you all the time. Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Are you following? And you're giving me everything I want. You're like,
I'm very interested in what y'all are saying, and I do have questions rolling in my mind. I'm trying to, I was trying to find a good place for some of them, and just taking in what you're saying, because it's very helpful for me for the long term, especially. Like, they're planting more and more seeds in the back of my mind. I had one question in particular. I kind of know one avenue I want to go, and it's not like a big business. I'm an alternative care kind of person, and that's a big passion of mine. But I think I only want to do that a few days a week. It is very energy demanding when you're moving energy through people. That's a
right.
separate.
No, actually, we both are, by the way. We're both.
Oh, you are? Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
We're into that.
Totally.
Oh, okay, awesome. I was just working on someone earlier through muscle testing, applied kinesiology, and resetting her and stuff like
Don't
that.
work on me in my sleep tonight. I have too many thoughts right now.
No, full permission is required.
Yeah,
for
that's
anything.
right. I was making sure.
Asking or anything like that. No, very positive energy, pull from the right places. But because of that, I was very sick as a kid, and that's where I draw my passion for that. And
Yes.
I want to help people be well and go from not walking or not being able to read, forgetting your, like from ground zero all the way up.
Yeah, I get it.
But I also want to, I think, navigate my way into the business world where, I don't know, starting something up just sounds so sparking to me, but I don't know how to get there and push, because I am a anxious person, I've noticed, since I've gotten well again, and I don't know when to go full force with an idea, because I know I can stay cushiony with doing the alternative care because I can make a decent living, and if I invest right and plan out my, I'll meet my standard of living and be very satisfied with what I do. But I don't know how to get that extra. It's like your passion that you get when you start a new business, or you see something, you love it, and I feel like I would love to get there, but I don't know how to push my idea to be like, yes, this is the right thing.
Well, the nice thing that you said is that you can actually use the concept of energy and radiate. And the way you can radiate, you can do this better than we could have. I'm much older than everyone. I might be the same age as but radiate means that when you know that you have the ability to settle into your nucleus and be good, and that's a calming place that makes you feel that you're not at risk. You can then go out within that same spectrum and start to create a sense of presence. So you can do blogs, you can do podcasts, you become known for certain products, you start becoming an advocate of things, and it picks up bit by bit. And whenever you're operating from comfort, you can then direct your passion into incremental ways where you don't have to suffer the anxiety, and you can enjoy the excitement, and you know that any incremental win is going to take you to a higher level. And I just felt from you and the way you described it that you're the right type of person that could actually passionately communicate things, that the right market's going to come around you. It's a niche market, but if you're already comfortable in a smaller path, a smaller market that you were describing, any incremental growth gives you both the rush and the reach, and each begins to cross-sell the other. So if you think about it now, where everything will cross over to one another, still in the nucleus of energy healing.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I'm sure I have like 1,000 other questions in my head. That was the key one, and I'll let others get back to it. I'm just enjoying the learning this, and it really does show me, I don't know, there's a way to do it more so, because I mean, I know successful people that just start small for the alternative healing. They do well, they can do what they want. They started to teach it themselves and they made more. And I mean, you can see many ways with that, but really interested in what you guys know in the alternative world as well. But
You
it's
can
cool.
direct message us afterwards.
Okay,
My
yeah.
story will blow your mind. So I have a lot in this space.
Okay, well, I would love to hear and learn from you guys more and more, and just love. I'm glad we have this opportunity. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Other questions? Anyone else?
Kind
Yeah.
of along with what I was gonna say with what Danny said. Can we have their emails after if we have questions?
Yeah.
Is that okay, David, Christy?
Shy. We both respond to email, text, phone calls. Like, we're very accessible people.
Is it also okay if students connect with you on LinkedIn or
Yes,
other
please
forms?
do.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Any
It's our
other
pleasure
questions?
to help. And, you know,
Sorry, I had one. So I, like you described yourself, I'm very like the never settle type. I'm just want to do 8 million things at once, and when I'm not, I'm very easily bored, and like my passion can die down. Does that ever get overwhelming or overbearing? Because I know like I have a very small threshold between like go, 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 or I'm gonna be bored, and then like, oh shoot, I've kind of overloaded myself. How do you find that balance?
I think she finds me overwhelming.
I
for sure.
do.
I really don't get overwhelmed. And to be like really blunt, I don't watch TV. I don't watch sports. I don't play golf. You know, I am really like with Christy and our family, and we're sitting I write here. There's a writing area. I know, show you. Like over here, I have all my writing I do every morning, and I write at night, and I'm always thinking. But when I was younger, it did look more like frenetic thinking, and the voice in my head was just like, you know, a bit angrier. It wasn't as calm as I am today, just because also I was learning to harness it and understand where it was coming from. And I had to drive sort of like turbulence with the rocket, where you're like at the beginning you're like this until you get in, and then you're gliding. And it's just beautiful. I feel I'm more at that part now, but I don't get overwhelmed, and I don't know quite how to describe it from the inside though. She does get overwhelmed though, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for you, it seems like because you enjoy what you do so much, it never becomes too much.
It's not work.
Yeah, so I think David's been very wise in channeling his energy into something that he enjoys and is also really good at. And so he can keep going, keep going, keep going. And because it's coming from a place of joy, I think it doesn't become overwhelming. If I told him that, like, I broke a glass, like if I dropped
this whole time
glass,
she was going to knock the can.
if I dropped this glass and it shattered, and I told him you need to pick up every piece, he would totally freak out. Like that's his worst nightmare, you know. But for me, I'd be like, all right, whatever.
But something huge happens. Like literally, if we heard right now that Petal just cratered, the FDC came in, and we are in huge trouble, I would get calmer and calmer and calmer and say, okay, I'll take care of this. But
it's because it's something that for whatever reason, he even enjoys dealing with issues like that surrounding business. So I think that that's where a lot of it comes from, that he likes what he does. So it never becomes burdensome or too much, you know?
I would say that there's a difference between energy and being frenetic though. And it sounds like you're taking on so much because you're not deciding where your energy should be. And there's great power in saying no. So don't hear what I said wrong. I do a lot. I don't get overwhelmed. I am very good at saying no. And it's an act of self-care, and it's an act of self-growth to be able to say no. And that may be something you want to consider.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So David and Christy, if you could look at all the notes I've been taking, I have like 2 pages full of notes, and I have like questions I want to ask you, but I'm also mindful of the time, which
We're
is
okay time-wise, whatever you want though.
But our official class time is finished, so we need to bring this to a close.
Okay.
And to close, I will say I am very, very thankful that you took the time to talk to our students today. I'm
Our
also
pleasure.
very appreciative that you agreed that they can connect with you on LinkedIn, or, through email and social media. So that's wonderful. I think I speak for all the students that we wish you the best for your venture. And we
Thank you.
hope that next time you join us for one of these sessions, you are at the next stage of the venture development. So thank you.
If not, we'll be at next. We'll be at one of them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Our pleasure, y'all.
It
Take
was
care.
so great to talk to you guys. Feel free to connect.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.